The province says it has begun tunneling the final segment of the Eglinton Crosstown West extension. But Metrolink says there is still no date for the opening of the Eglinton LRT, which was originally slated to open 5 years ago. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has the latest.
Provincial officials and Toronto's mayor got a look at progress on the western extension of the Eglinton Crosstown. Tunneling is starting on the last section of that stretch. This tunnel will go 500 meters east, where it will meet up with the Eglinton Crosstown. Then in this direction, the trains will lead all the way to Mississauga. But that part is still years away from completion. The more pressing question today, when the first section of the crosstown will open. No exact date just yet.
We're going to open the crosstown this year, and we're going to do so when it's in a safe and reliable manner to do so.
You can already see trains running on the line, and as of mid-March, it's to train the TTC drivers.
There has been some exceptional progress that's been made.
Next, he says, there'll be more testing of the line.
Those tests are going to be the thing that really tell us what the safety and reliability performance of this line is going to be. And therefore, we need those tests in order to know what the actual opening date is going to be. But what I can tell you is I see everybody doing the right things to prepare for this project to come into service this year.
Then they move into more frequent testing to mimic the speed and service level of when the line will open. He says that usually lasts around a month. Construction started way back in 2011. At the time, Dalton McGuinty was premier. The current premier's brother, the late Rob Ford, was mayor.
I just learned it is the largest transit expansion in North America.
Delay after delay to get transit on Eglinton has become the butt of jokes in this city. One city councillor remembers way back before the LRT plans, when digging started for a subway, filled in a year later.
I've been working on this line since 1994, when I was the mayor of York. And finally we're here. I'm so excited.
The original crosstown was first supposed to open in 2020. With this latest goal, the delay will be 5 years, with 14 years of construction. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadians will be heading to the polls in less than 3 weeks. Much of the campaign so far has focused on Trump's tariffs, but disability advocates hope other important issues don't get put on the back burner. Tonight, several groups hosted a debate with local candidates to discuss concerns affecting the millions in the country who live with a disability. JP Galliardo has more on what some advocates want to see changed.
13 advocacy groups have come together tonight to host a debate on disability issues ahead of the federal election. They're calling for more focus on the issues affecting over 8 million Canadians.
So we wanted to arrange a candidates debate where all the parties could come together at one place and tell voters with disabilities about the positions of the parties that affect people with disabilities on urgent issues that relate to their lives.
Candidates from the NDP, Liberal, and Green Party are all taking part.
And so I really appreciate them for that.
Missing were representatives from the Conservative Party, which did not reply to the invite. CBC News reached out to the party as to why, but did not get a response in time for broadcast. Kate Chung is the co-founder of the Accessible Housing Network. She says the next government should amend the National Building Code, making it mandatory that all housing feature universal designs.
So universal design basically just means that you can move around in the unit, and it can take the same footprint as any other house, say an apartment. It's just how you arrange the space inside so that, say, for example, someone in a wheelchair would be able to get around, or someone with a walker.
Bruce McIntosh from the Ontario Autism Coalition says, aside from a renewed commitment to a national autism strategy, he wants the next government to implement national accessibility standards.
We have the Access for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, but that only applies to Ontario. And I think that the government could really have an impact in the quality of life for people with disabilities if they could go to any place in the country and expect the same sort of access to the places that they would want to go, buildings, restaurants, transit.
Aside from policies, advocates are also raising concerns around voting accessibility.
Elections Canada does not provide to voters who are blind, like me, a way to independently mark our own ballot in private without anyone helping us and without anybody seeing how we voted, and to independently verify that the ballot is marked the way we want it to.
CBC News also reached out to Elections Canada to confirm whether they would be accommodating blind voters differently this time around. And in a statement, they say progress has been made on an application that will allow voters who are blind or partially sighted to vote and verify their ballot independently. However, it was not ready in time for the upcoming election. Voters will be heading to the polls on April 28th. JP Gallardo, CBC News, Toronto.
A 26-year-old man is facing charges after a gas hose struck another man, causing life-threatening injuries in Etobicoke yesterday.
It was reported that a man in his 20s was leaving the gas station with the gas nozzle still attached to his car. As he left, the gas hose pulled off the gas tank and struck a man in his 60s who was walking by. The man was struck, it caused him to fall, and he sustained life-threatening injuries.
It happened around 5:30 p.m. at a Shell gas station on Burnhamthorpe Road, just west of Renforth Drive. Police say the 26-year-old driver returned to the scene and has now been charged with careless driving and dangerous operation causing bodily harm. Trump's trade war appears to be having a significant impact on the number of Canadians traveling south of the border. But data show it's not really slowing down Americans heading north. And experts say there's an opportunity for the hospitality and tourism industry to take advantage. Dale Manukduk has more.
Destination Ontario recently did a survey in the U.S. market to understand American travel intentions.
58% of Americans are still considering coming to Ontario to travel this year. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, it's a very safe country. Number two, we have a lot of shared values. Ontario is known for being very diverse. Number three, just making travel plans is easier.
American tourists make up about 20% of all tourism spending in Ontario. There was a drop-off in visitors after the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's slowly been creeping back to the norm. This despite booing the American national anthem and various municipalities taking down the U.S. flag. The Destination Ontario survey did find that Americans are concerned about how welcome they are.
So normally we have very high favorability ratings there, but it's dropped about 15%.
Canada Border Services data shows virtually no change in the number of Americans crossing the border in March of 2025 compared to the same time last year.
The Americans will continue to be here because it's not about the Canadians or Americans. This is about one guy. The two countries are very friendly together.
Perhaps the biggest reason Americans are still traveling here is the exchange rate.
It's basically a third off, so it's a great deal to come to Canada right now. So if you're paying $200 on a hotel room, that's really saving $60 a night. So that's a pretty substantial savings for coming across the border.
The tourism industry of Ontario is hoping governments pour more ad dollars into showcasing the province as a destination.
The industry is elbows up as it relates to policy, but we remain arms open through hospitality.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The Public Health Department in New York State is concerned about the surge of measles cases here in Ontario, listing our province on a travel advisory, urging residents to get vaccinated before visiting. Greg Ross has more.
The New York State Department of Health says measles is only a car ride away. That was the opening line in a travel advisory they put out last week. It pointed to a recent outbreak in Ontario with more than 600 confirmed or probable cases, the most we've seen here in decades.
For example, last year was considered a big year, and there were 64 cases in 2024.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Isaac Bogosh says one specific area of the province has been hit particularly hard.
This outbreak is largely driven by an under-vaccinated community in southwestern Ontario, and of course said with no stigma, no value judgment. This is predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly in a Mennonite community that is mostly unvaccinated.
Officials there say most of the cases they've seen have been in children, and it's put a strain on their healthcare system.
It's extremely busy for our region, for our health unit. Again, like we haven't seen anything like this for decades. We're certainly, assigning and having additional staff work on this.
The advisory out of New York State does not suggest people should not travel to Ontario. It encourages people to get vaccinated if they are not already, to protect against contracting the virus.
As long as you're up to date on your routine childhood immunizations and have immunity to measles, there would be no concern whatsoever.
The travel advisory lists a number of other countries that have had an increase in the number of measles cases this year, including Yemen, Pakistan, India, Thailand, and Ethiopia. There have also been nearly 500 cases reported in the U.S. this year. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Last year, the city introduced stricter rules for dangerous dogs, including requiring owners to display a "Beware of Dogs" sign where they live. But bylaw officers are finding that some owners aren't doing so. Tyler Cheese explains.
I think those dogs could be considered that they were very severe bites at the time.
The city's Economic and Community Development Committee has approved a potential amendment to Toronto's dangerous dog bylaw. Last year, the city issued stricter measures to keep tabs on dogs with a history of violence. That includes requiring owners to display a city-branded sign at their home.
The sign has a QR code that says what the requirements are if you own a dangerous dog, so everybody can make sure, is that dog muzzled when it goes out into the elevator? And it is for public health and safety.
But she says some condo buildings have rules against signage on doors and have opted to not allow the city's signs.
These signs have to go up. It's the same as fire safety. You can't say we're not putting up an exit sign in our condo or anything to do with safety. This is a sign about safety.
Now, the proposed amendment adds explicit language to include condos requiring the sign to be displayed on the owner's door. The stricter measures that came into effect last year also include a dangerous dog map, which includes information about the dog in question and the incident that led to its dangerous designation. The measures were first proposed in response to a series of dog attacks that left 3 people, 2 women and a child, with serious injuries. But some say they're too strict.
There should be the ability to kind of review and reassess the order as, the dog undergoes obedience training, socialization training, to see if the dog has been rehabilitated.
Owners can appeal a dangerous dog order, but they have to do so within 30 days of receiving the designation.
But I know very, very few of those appeals are successful. And then after that, there's no ability to reassess whether the dangerous dog order should be removed.
And others say they'd like to see the city focus their efforts elsewhere.
I would like to see a better enforcement of the existing bylaws, specifically when it comes to the leash bylaws, ensuring that people are not letting their dogs off leash in areas that are not designated off leash areas, in order to reduce chance encounters with wildlife, other dogs who may not be comfortable being approached by off leash dogs, and also to avoid people who may not want to be approached by off-leash dogs.
The amendment to the bylaw will now go to City Council at the end of the month. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
A 78-year-old man is dead after being struck by a falling tree near Peterborough as cleanup continues from last month's ice storm. It happened yesterday in the township of Otonabee, South Monaghan. OPP say a person was clearing damaged trees when one came down and struck the victim. Officers are reminding residents to be cautious as they continue the cleanup. Power is also still being restored with around 32,000 people still waiting. We spoke to one resident in Kawartha Lakes who hasn't had power for 10 days.
All of the apartments to the right, to the left of us, all the storefronts, everything across the street, the street lights have power besides us. We have what's called a secondary line, which is connected from our apartment to the main lines. A branch fell off during the ice storm that kind of knocked out the power. I really do hope that this gets taken care of sooner rather than later. At the pace that this is going, I'm not optimistic on that front, but I would love to be proven wrong.
He says his apartment is averaging just 10 degrees, adding that while they could stay with family and friends, they are sticking it out at home for the sake of their cat. Hydro One says over 4,000 crew members have been deployed to help restore power to the remaining residents. Welcome back. Construction season is ramping up, bringing inevitable headaches. Toronto residents have filed many complaints with Metrolinx over noise from construction on the Ontario line. But as Talia Ricci reports, the city's noise bylaws don't apply to provincial or federal infrastructure projects.
Excavation work is currently underway for the Ontario line, both here at Queen and Spadina and also at King and Bathurst. Metrolinx says at the north side of this intersection, work is ongoing 24/7. Needless to say, that hasn't been a pleasant experience for those who live here.
That's a little too much, especially in downtown Toronto and you're living at home for construction 24/7. That's crazy. You need to have, at least Sundays and Saturdays off for people to feel more at peace in their own home.
Now you might be thinking, aren't there limitations to those hours? When it comes to the City of Toronto bylaws, yes, there are.
The city says construction noise is not permitted when it is clearly audible from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or until 9 a.m. on Saturdays, all-day Sunday, and stat holidays. But government works are actually exempt from the noise bylaw. That amendment was made in 2019 and includes construction conducted by the province and any of its agencies, which means, you guessed it, Metrolinx. So for those projects, construction noises are able to happen outside the allowable hours.
It honestly makes me feel like I live in a cage. I just want to open my door and leave and work somewhere else until the construction is done.
Should that be allowed? One expert says it's a complicated issue, but there has to be a balance between finishing critical infrastructure projects in a timely manner and considering people's health and well-being.
It's hard for me to just put a yes or no, it's good or bad. There should nonetheless be a pretty firm application and use of all types of mitigation that exist. So if it has to go on, for example, beyond the normal hours of construction allowed by the city, there should be extra care taken to make sure that those impacts are as minimal as possible, whether that be additional sound barriers, using different types of equipment that's quieter.
Metrolinx says it's making every effort to minimize impacts to local residents, including using less disruptive equipment, and that it's monitoring noise levels. In a statement, the agency said, "We are working with our contractor to explore different methods of construction to help reduce noise as work progresses." It says acoustic shelters are being built and road headers are being used, which allows for excavation with less noise and vibration. Residents like Lean don't feel there's enough mitigation happening and certainly wouldn't describe the equipment as quiet. She, among others, have been filing complaints with Metrolinx and also demanding better communication about when the work is happening.
You call in the 24/7 hotline, they put in a complaint, you never hear back. So far, the reality has been chaos for us. It just feels like you're in another construction.
After several phone calls and emails, she says Metrolinx did provide her with an air purifier and a noise machine, but it hasn't made much of a difference.
I think the gap is really in the enforcement.
Tor Oyamo says there isn't actually a lot of research done on the impacts of construction noise, because the type of noise disturbances that are studied are usually more consistent, like the effects of living nearby planes and trains. But with the city undergoing a lot of construction in the coming years, nearby residents should definitely be considered.
So it's not a problem that's going away, and especially with the densification you see in downtown, all these projects are just affecting more and more people because there's more and more people in close proximity to them. So I think it's very important to follow best practices and encourage that, if not legislate it.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
And while construction season is here, spring still clearly in the development phase. Emergency crews were busy after overnight snow turned roads into skating rinks, leaving many wondering when the warm weather will finally be here to stay.
I got my snow tires removed last month, thinking that it was spring. I guess it's not, so I'm probably going to be staying in today until I know that the roads are okay to drive on.
It took me 2 hours to go 20 minutes, what's normally a 20-minute drive, so I wasn't super thrilled about that.
The wintry weather closing multiple roads and highway off-ramps, causing countless traffic jams. Now, many roads weren't treated with salt in the early morning hours, creating black ice conditions throughout the city. Toronto police say there were multiple collisions, including a 6-vehicle crash just after 5:30 this morning. Stick around, Khalil Hassanali has your long-range forecasts coming up. All right, Khalil Hassan Ali joins us now with a check on the forecast. And Khalil, feeling a bit more like winter instead of spring today.
A very cold day indeed. So we did have a very cold start to the morning, and it really continued through the rest of the day. Minus temperatures, the wind chill really feeling like it was minus 10. So not a great day overall in terms of the weather. Unfortunately, it's going to hang around for a little bit, and we do have a little bit of unsettled weather as we go through the rest of the work week. So not great, but then there is a change towards the end of the weekend. I'll get to that in just a moment. So looking at our rain forecast for the next little while, we mentioned the rain and the cold weather sticking around at least for a little bit. So it looks like for the next 24 hours, there isn't going to be a ton in terms of rain coming in, but it is going to be Wednesday night into the overnight into Thursday morning where it does start to move into the city in terms of a rain-snow mix for people around the GTA. So that's what we're looking at as we head through Wednesday evening and into the morning hours of Thursday. And that's really going to be what we see for the next 24 to 36 hours. In terms of wind gusts, that wind gust really did bring down the temperature and the field temperature through the day today. And that's going to be what we're going to encounter as we go towards tomorrow morning. So at 8 a.m., wind gusts around 28 kilometers an hour. It is going to get a little bit lighter as we go through the evening hours, really light overnight, and then picks up as we head out the door on Thursday morning. So that's going to be the next 36 hours in terms of wind chill factors. That's why it's going to be really, really prevalent. So these are the overnight temperatures that we're looking at for the Golden Horseshoe. Mississauga, it's going to be -7 through the overnight, and clearing out for Toronto and -7 as well. Further to the east, maybe around Oshawa, it might be rain, snow mix as we have some unsettled weather, and we can see a little bit of a forecast and alert coming in through the Oshawa area. And then as we head into tomorrow afternoon, we do have a little bit of sunshine, but again, it is going to be quite cool, 5 degrees for the city. And we do have that wind chill once again, making it feel a lot cooler than that. So through the overnight hours, -6 for Toronto, getting up to 5 degrees tomorrow. And then we looked at the little bit of a reprieve as we get towards the end of the weekend. It is going to be Thursday that it is going to be unsettled and a bit cool. 6 degrees on Friday, a bit of rain expected, and then for 9 degrees on Saturday, and then the switch coming around as we go into Sunday, 12 degrees, looking even better as we go into the Monday, and expecting a high around 14 degrees for that Monday afternoon.
All right, thanks so much, Khalil. And that's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.